All right, let's jump right in. Today, we are tackling a question that is, well, huge and pretty fascinating. What does it actually mean to be normal? We're going to dive deep into this super slippery concept and see what it might just reveal about the future of humanity itself.
So let's start with the big one. What is normal? It seems like such a simple question on the surface, doesn't it? But, the more you try to grab onto an answer, the more complicated it gets.
Because as soon as you try to define it, you immediately hit a wall. See, what you or I consider normal depends entirely on our perspective, what culture we're in, what we've been through in our own lives, and even just what specific trait we happen to be measuring at that moment.
Okay, so let's really get into this first part. Why is this concept so tricky to nail down?
I mean, just think about it for a second. With all the incredible variability between all of us, our genes, our totally unique life stories, the cultures we come from, trying to create some single universal standard for normal, it's basically an impossible task.
And this example just hits the nail on the head. A physical trait isn't normal in some kind of vacuum. Its meaning, its impact, the value we place on it, that's all created by the world around it. There's just no objective, one-size-fits-all standard.
So the really crucial point here is that we're asking a question that just doesn't have a single absolute answer. And you know what? That's perfectly okay. But it's how we try to answer it anyway that gets really interesting.
So, if there's no such thing as an absolute normal, how do we even begin to understand ourselves as a species? Well, our first instinct is usually to look for the average.
You've seen this before, right? The classic bell-shaped curve. Both in everyday life and in science, we look for patterns. We tend to map things out like this, and we define normal as that big cluster right there in the middle, where most people land.
But here's the twist. What if we're looking in the wrong place? The core argument here is that the most vital information about humanity isn't in the average, it's in the outliers, the freaks, as the source material calls them, way out at the extreme ends of the curve.
Now, this is a fascinating idea. The extremes, both the good and the bad, they're not just random blips. They are potential roadmaps. You could say evolution loves to experiment out on the fringes, and these outliers might just be its beta tests for where we could be going next.
Okay, so if these outliers are showing us our potential, that begs a huge question. Which dimension should we be focusing on? I mean, what human trait matters the most for our future?
Well, the speculation from Dr. Michael Lukens is that out of all the human traits you could possibly measure, the most important one for our survival and our evolution is our capacity for love. And he's pretty specific about it, defining it as committed, benevolent interest, a really deep, active care for the well-being of others.
And this just cracks open one of the oldest questions there is, right? Nature versus nurture. Are we born with this capacity for connection? The source even points to the umbilical cord as a kind of primal biological attachment, a physical symbol of this benevolent interest from the literal very beginning.
But you can't really understand a powerful force like love without looking at its dark reflection, its polar opposite. And this opposite is identified as a very real, very present danger to us all.
Now, we're not just talking about apathy or a simple lack of love here. In this framework, contempt is an active, destructive force. It's a misanthropic drive. That's the actual need to pull other people down, to see them fail, just so you can feel like you've won.
And this comparison, wow, it just lays it all out crystal clear. It's a fundamental choice between building up and tearing down. One person wants to create a heaven on earth for everyone, while the other would rather rule over the ruins.
So all of this leads us to the final and honestly the most crucial question. We've got these two opposing forces, these two potential destinies for our species. So, can we consciously choose our direction? Can we actually move the needle?
And this is where we hit a massive philosophical problem. It's like a yin-yang dilemma. If you push really hard on one side, what happens to the other? Does promoting love, even with the best intentions, somehow strengthen its opposite?
I mean, there's a pessimistic possibility, right? That for every single person we recruit to the side of love, another falls into the darkness of contempt. The extremes just get more extreme, but the middle, the normal, it never actually shifts. We're just left in this endless cosmic tug-of-war.
But even with that grim possibility hanging in the air, the final message here is one of hope. The call to action is clear.
We have to try. We have to make a conscious, intentional, collective effort to choose love and see if we can, in fact, shift that needle for all of humanity.
And that leaves us with this final thought to chew on. Is the potential reward, elevating our collective capacity for love, worth the very real risk of activating its destructive and maybe even louder opposite? Thank you for watching.